LJ Cryer and Adam Flagler will be catalysts to Baylor competing for a national championship, but are they okay? Are they even healthy? This is Locked On Baylor.
You are Locked On Baylor, your daily podcast on the Baylor Bears, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Happy Thursday, everybody. Welcome to Locked On Baylor. Drake Toll from Sports Illustrated's Inside the Bears alongside Brandon McKinnon from Our Daily Bears. Thank you for making Locked On Baylor your first listen every single day. Brandon, LJ Cryer, Adam Flagler. The last time Baylor played basketball, which was a long time ago, by the way. It's a 12-day gap. It feels kind of funky in the middle of the year. There's usually one of these. We didn't see LJ Cryer. We didn't see Adam Flagler coming out of that Gonzaga game, and based on both of them being hurt last season, not what you want to see as a Baylor fan when arguably two of your three best players are already sitting within the first 10-ish games of the season. Yeah,
the 12-day gap around finals is always kind of a pain.
As a fan, yes.
Yeah, you respect it from a student-athlete standpoint, but as a fan, it's like, we didn't have basketball since March, April. Now it's gone again for a week and a half. What now? But no, I everything that I think I've seen on Twitter, heard, is that Flagler, and it was, the coaches talked about it, out with an illness, was actually sick during the Gonzaga game as well. And so nothing, like, no crazy cause for concern. Anytime you hear illness, I feel like people still have the 2020 PTSD of, are we shutting the team down or whatever? But I don't think it was really that big of a deal. And then I think LJ went, just woke up and had a tight back after the Gonzaga game. So also didn't play against Tarleton. So I'm not super concerned, but I agree with you that when you have these two guys that are going to be pivotal for your success in a team that's guard driven, not play, that is tough and was concerning when you were scrolling Twitter and you're like, Langston and Dale are starting. Feel like we've been here before. But the good news is that those guys played well and showed flashes. And I mean, Dale had done that all last year too, but it was good to see Langston get a lot of minutes.
It was interesting to me that, and look, it's tough to get too worried too fast about something like this when you understand that it's a gruel of a season and Baylor's playing Tarleton State. Had it been a top 25 matchup and both those guys are missing, you're really considering, okay, how serious could these be? So, I mean, you're playing an easier team, got a 12-day break coming up. Why not give these guys a night off, which it felt like hopefully was the case. Seems like it was. But you're right. Dale Bonner steps up. You get Langston Love steps up. It felt like that's the first time we've got the Langston Love that we were advertised.
Yeah, I 100% feel that way. I mean, you saw the play in the Gonzaga game when Dale hit him on the fast break on the no-look pass and Langston dunked. And there were still other flashes in the Gonzaga game where Langston looked, I thought, good and had his legs about him. Really, it was the first time he hasn't had a knee brace on, and whether that's a mental thing or truly is a hindrance in mobility, which I would imagine it would be. But he looked incredible last Tuesday. Yeah, it's already been, like a long time ago.
Over a week, yeah.
Over a week. But he looked really good. And he showed, I felt like, a calmness about him when stuff was hitting the fan early in that game. He kept us in, and I thought he looked outstanding.
Yeah, the Gonzaga game, you're right, felt the launch pad into what you would get from Langston Love against Tarleton State. So to know that right now, Adam Flagler, LJ Cryer are both okay, it makes my heart happy and my soul.
Yeah.
Because last season, it was game in and game out. Okay, is this the game that LJ Cryer is back? Is this the game that Adam Flagler's 100%? And as good as Langston Love was, as good as Dale Bonner was, without Adam Flagler and LJ Cryer, I don't think this team is a national championship caliber basketball team.
Yeah, I agree. It's also fun that we've gotten 5 minutes into this pod and haven't said Keontae George, just to point to the depth of the roster.
Right.
But no, I agree. I think last year, if you think back to it, it was almost a shock when LJ did play. Like, he played in that Tech game on the road and he went off. Like, he was picked up right where he left off from three. So it was almost strange. I have zero insight. I don't know this, but it seems like it was gamesmanship from the coaching staff of like, LJ's day to day. Is he going to play? But I mean, I think realistically he was shut down when, immediately after the season. He has surgery on both of his feet, but he's back. And I think it's good to know that the injury that held him out this past week was not affiliated with any of the lingering effects from surgery.
Great point.
Your back is pretty far from your feet. Not a doctor, only took astronomy at Baylor, got a C, but that is something that I'm confident in saying. To your point, my heart is happy. I think they'll be back Sunday against Washington State.
Brandon, this is, and we're going to get more into this in the second segment, but I mentioned there how without those two guys, I don't think Baylor's a national championship caliber team. And that's what took them out of even making the Sweet 16 last year, was just this onslaught of injuries that held Baylor back from having a deep roster, the one that they do this season. Is this, with a healthy Adam Flagler and Keontae George, you're staring down a team that is, it's not historic, obviously, but as low as you've really gotten them the last couple of years in Ken Pom or Haslametrics, it feels like a team that a lot of national media members don't consider to currently be a national championship contender. The ship's not sinking, but I'm confused as to why the hype on this team has died so quickly.
I think, strangely enough, it starts with the defensive side of the ball, honestly, because if even when we fell to 16 in KenPom or whatever it was immediately after the Marquette game, which I still don't want you to ever talk about on Locked On Baylor, which is also why we didn't pod about it.
Yeah. Like, you were scheduled for that episode, and it was
and I replied and said, "I'm sad we're not doing this." That was on me. But KenPom still had us like number 3 offensively, but we were in the 40s on defense. So I think that's why a lot of the national media isn't giving us the same praise that we were getting preseason. I think they assumed everybody's going to come in, same Scott Drew defense, basically Jalen Bridges will be Jeremy Sohan, and Caleb Lohner will be the same, like a Mark Vital equivalent. And the pieces are there and make sense, but it's going to take time. I mean, we're still, a month into the season. I'm not super stressed out about it, but the national media is going to react because they have to vote on top 25 teams every week. And right now Baylor isn't in the top 10. People are saying the sky is falling and we're ranked 12. Think about where we are. And it's December. It's going to be all right.
Sky is not fallen yet, at least. There is the loss to Marquette. Yes, Brandon. And
we can touch on it for a couple minutes to end the first segment since we haven't talked about it if you want to, or we can move on.
It was inevitable that it would at least have been brought up. We don't have to deep dive into that one. We have tried not to on this podcast. There is the win against Gonzaga. There's the win against UCLA. There are quality wins across the schedule. The loss to Marquette, as bad as it was, is the reason Baylor is at 12. The defense, yes, you really get the details, but the loss to Virginia, who's, Virginia right now, they are the team. That is not going to drop you to where Baylor currently sits. So it's the loss to Marquette that puts you at 12.
And if I don't know if I just am a glutton for punishment or it was towing the line of wanting to make myself feel better or justifying why this happened and this won't happen again. The Marquette, yes, our defense didn't rotate great. Yes, our offense got stagnant. Those things are true, which probably led to some of this output. But Marquette legitimately shot double-digit points better from 3, 2, and the free throw line in that game than their season average. And it's you're a 30% shooting 3-point team and you shot 48%. You shoot 65% from the free throw line before that game and you shot 81%. Everything went wrong. And it's I would rather that happen in November than in February. So I've moved on. I dove into the stats. I rewatched the game and I was just this isn't going to happen again.
Yeah, we eulogized it. We said goodbye, moved on, beat Gonzaga, erased the Marquette game, and now move into nearing conference play. This team's as close to conference play basically as they are to their last game that they played. It feels like, at least. This is such a long gap. And that's something, Brandon, that I want to preview a little bit. Just the outlook on what is good, what is not so good, who is good, who needs to step it up getting into Big 12 play. But first, tell everybody at home about one of our newer sponsors at Locked On, NHTSA, and really a call to drive safe these holidays, because that's when typically you have a lot of drunk driving accidents. You may be hanging out with some friends, putting back a few beers. A few becomes too many. The evening comes to an end, and you think about calling for a ride, but you decide to drive. What are the odds you get pulled over? And if you do, what's the worst could happen? Well, your insurance could go up. You could lose your license. You could lose your job, total your car, or you could even kill someone. Everyone knows about the risk of driving drunk. The results are tragic, often deadly. However, it still doesn't stop everyone from doing it and driving under the influence. Is why police and officers are out there right now looking for impaired drivers on the roads in order to save lives. So if you think you're okay to drive after a few drinks, think again. Play it safe, plan ahead, get a ride. Only takes one mistake to change your life or someone else's forever. Don't forget, drive sober or get pulled over. Brandon, as we head into conference play, Keontae George, yes. Adam Flagler, a healthy, not sick Adam Flagler, yes. LJ Cryer, a healthy, back is okay LJ Cryer, yes. Then the rest of this team, it's like, all right, any given night, this could be the guy that steps up and gives you 20 points, or maybe not. There's your three consistent guys. The rest of this roster is a question mark, not in the worst way, but looking at consistency-wise, you've got three guys. Past that, it could be anybody, and that could be a great thing. But you saw in like the Marquette game, it can also kill you.
Yeah, I think there will be more nights where it is a great thing than there will be nights where it kills us. And honestly, I think that it's going to be really exciting to see, because it also might be rare that we get all three of those guys that go for 20. You know, that's unlikely.
But
probably
when they do,
two of the three. But when they do, it's flamethrowers on arms. It's wild. But I think it's going to be, you know, like Jalen Bridges started the season shooting really well, playing really efficient offense, has had a little bit of a slump. I wouldn't be surprised if he bounces back.
Yeah.
Caleb Lohner, when you play with that level of a motor, the ball's going to find you. Good things are going to happen. Langston Love, we saw what he can do against Tarleton and flashes against Gonzaga. Dale Bonner, like Scott Drew, you and I were in a post-game press conference, and Scott talked about how Dale is one of the best three-point shooters at practice, and now we're starting to see it translate to the game. We saw it in Global Jam. Like, we have all of these guys who on any given night could be the supplementary scorer, or quite frankly, Keontae is as good of a distributor and Adam is as good of a distributor. They could be a primary option on offense and really give defenses headaches. I think it would be great to see some additional offensive production out of Josh Ojonwuna. He's shown that he has great ball skills. He knocked down a couple mid-range jumpers in the last few games. That would be, you know, a huge plus. And then Flo is going to do his thing on the offensive glass. So I think it's just going to come down to defensive consistency, because the offensive talent's there.
It's there, without a doubt. The defense, less there, and you've alluded to that. Why? And you alluded to, this is a Scott Drew team. That's where the defense is supposed to be in college basketball. These teams like your Tony Bennett's, your Scott Drews, formerly Jay Wrights, are going to go out there and just be in your face. Mm-hmm. There's not been a lot of that this season.
Yeah, I went back and rewatched some games early from last year as well, just because I have nothing better to do with my life. And there was, I mean, we had that outstanding defensive performance against Villanova, but that came in late December, mid to late December. And in some of the non-conference games, there were times where the defense didn't look connected. And I think it's going to be the nature of our program moving forward, where we're going to have some one and done guys. Like, we're going to have more turnover in a good way than we did previously. Our lineup isn't going to be Jared, Maceo, Davion, Mark, Flo, guys that have been there for 12 years, you know, like, and so it's going to take time to learn the system. And I also think that I'm hesitant to say this is not an indictment on the current coaching staff, but I think that there's a lot to be said about Jerome Tang not being on the bench anymore as well. And it's just growing pains all around. And it's not a cause for concern, but I think that those could be some of the reasons. What do you think?
Yeah, you're seeing a really good Kansas State defense. You're seeing a really good Kansas State basketball team. And again, I don't think that's anything against the current coaching staff. I am a believer that Scott Drew and Jerome Tang is basically a 1-for-1. Those two guys are so similar, and they should be. They worked together for 20 years. That Kansas State basically has Scott Drew on their sidelines. I mean, that's your 1-for-1. And if Jerome Tang is at Kansas State for 20 years, I'm confident he'll do what Scott Drew did and win a national championship at some point along the way. That's 20 years to work with, but I think he's that caliber of a coach. You now take that off of the Baylor bench, it's going to have an effect on this team. Now, there's plenty of confidence in John Jacobs and Allen Brooks III, the entire coaching staff right now. But yeah, you take out a pivotal cog in what these players are used to, and a pivotal cog in development, like Keontae George doesn't get to play under Jerome Tang. That's something that I haven't really considered, but he never got to coach the kid. That's weird. That's like weird. 20 years of Baylor basketball, that's never been the case for a single player.
Yeah. No, and you need to title the pod Kansas State National Champion 2042.
In the next 2 decades.
On Locked On Baylor.
Jerome, I've given you 20 years. Jerome's a close friend. I'm giving you 20 years of a buffer here, man.
Yeah. No. It is strange, but I do think that we still have one of the best coaching staffs in the country. And that's why so many people want to come play here. Transfers, high school kids. I'm not concerned about the coaching staff. That was not what I was saying by the Jerome Tang comment. I'm just saying, to your point, the caliber of coach that is left could be a reason why the defense isn't as connected. It also could just be new, fresh faces playing big minutes. Like, there's so many things. And I think that this 12-day stretch could be really great for that, because although they're not playing a game over the course of 12 days, sure, maybe practices a little bit fewer or whatever to give time for finals, but they're still practicing. Like, they are smarter basketball minds than we are. Watch better tape than we do. Yeah. They are going to make improvements, and I cannot wait to watch us play Sunday, because I think it's going to be a very revamped team with 12 days off. It's basically like a mega bye week in the NFL,
It is the super bye week. I like mega, actually. It's the mega bye week. Let's go with that. 12 days. Brandon, the next thing I do want to get into is the Washington State game and kind of the outlook as Baylor gets your 12 days of rest, what you need to see out of that game on a neutral site in Dallas, in a classic with the men's and women's team both playing against Pac-12 opponents, which is awesome. If you haven't gotten your tickets, go get your tickets. Do that. It's going to be fun.
They're still doing the 2-for-1 in certain sections. So through Baylor's ticket website, it'll like redirect you to Ticketmaster. And if you buy one seat, put in the code, get 2. Don't know the code.
Boom. Go find the code on your own. Yeah, we gave you enough information.
It's on their Twitter. I can't teach a man to fish, or whatever the saying is.
Yeah, he'll fish for a day, something like that, and he'll eat for a year. Whatever. Speaking of whatever you do right now, go to betonline.net. It's not even close. It's the number one source for sports betting info, stats, news, analysis. If you don't like the sports bet, that's okay. That's fine. That's fine. I understand, because you can lose money. You can also win money. You do one or the other, 50% chance. BetOnline, though, it's not just about wagering. Every professional sport, every amateur league, it's all right there. Basketball, baseball, other sports, the World Cup, they've got it all. BetOnline.net. If you love podcasts, they've got podcasts. This is a podcast you're listening to. I'm a podcaster. I've never really thought about that. Somebody's like, "Oh, what do you do?" I've never said I'm a podcaster. I don't think I like the way that sounds. BetOnline, though, has podcasts that are really good. They're always the fastest, easiest way to get your info. Do it online, on your phone, do it on your computer, everything. It is where the game starts. We've had this conversation before. The game cannot start unless you go to BetOnline. That's why Baylor's not like basketball in 10 days. All right, Brandon. Washington State basketball, the Wazoo Cougars. All right. Baylor, American Airlines Center on Sunday. I just think it's a cool game. I don't think this is a really good matchup for Washington State, but it's at least like oddly fun and intriguing to me, although Baylor should probably roll.
Yeah, I mean, Washington State's 4-5. They haven't played a ton of great teams, and the reason they're 4-5 is they don't have a great defense.
I know a team. No, I'm just kidding.
I know a team. Yeah, no, I know a team that has a great offense that can take advantage of a not great defense. But and candidly, I've watched like 30 minutes of their tape, so it hasn't been a ton. But they really have like 4 guys that are solid and play big minutes, like 35 plus minutes a game. They aren't super deep, and those 4 guys will score, double digits. One guy, TJ Bamba, he's their best player. He's a good 3-point shooter. But yeah, I mean, they're not super deep. I think it's going to be maybe close at the beginning, because anyone is going to be excited to play in an NBA arena. But I do think Baylor should come out on top.
Yeah, they've lost UNLV in their last matchup. That one was like 4 days ago. So, I mean, who do you want to be? Do you want to be the team that sat for 12 days? Do you want to be the team that sat for 5 days? I, personally, the guy who didn't play basketball past 9th grade, want to be the team that sat for 5 days. Is there a rust factor to you in this game where Baylor comes out and we could see that rejuvenated defense that just pounds Washington State, or you see a team that hasn't played in 12 days?
Yeah, I mean, I think anytime you see these teams play on neutral sites, I mean, think about it's why the under first half in every national championship game always hits. Like the offenses always come out weird. The like as dumb as it sounds, like the depth perception in a new stadium, like it all is a factor. So I would like maybe some rust offensively, but I do really think that the defense is going to look good. I really do. Like I think that defensively will look better. Like it's so pivotal to what we're trying to do on offense to have a good defense. Like as dumb as that sounds, but it is. Like it's pivotal that we make stops and limit the number of possessions that our opponent has. And I expect the defense to look better, and there might be some offensive rust, but I expect by like, the second media timeout or something will be smoothed out. Are you going to go? Are you going to drive up to Dallas?
I was going to do it because I'm going to be there for the state championship. China Spring plays on Friday, tomorrow, in the state championship. So, Saturday I'm going to see Flatline Cavalry at Billy Bob's. So this all leads up to Sunday where I should just stay and go to the basketball game. I might, I actually might. I've said I'm going to go home, but I might not. We'll see what happens. Also, maybe go to the college football playoff too. So travel for me in this holiday is going to be nuts. So we're going to see what happens here.
Yeah.
Are you going to go? Are you going to be at the game?
So
is that another no? Neither of us are going to the game. How are they going to play this?
I was planning on going, but then my wife reminded me that we have our final small group leader training with our church on Sunday, and that didn't feel like the best thing to skip to go watch us beat Washington State. Right. I'm looking to save those. Hey, I'm skipping this for like conference games. I'm trying to save those tokens.
That's a great point. No,
but if you're already going to be up there, I think you should go.
I might as well. So I may delay my trip a day to go see Baylor, who averages 85 points per game against Washington State, who averages 72. Washington State lost 3 of the last 4 against UNLV, Utah, and Oregon. Lost it. I mean, look, Utah and Oregon aren't bad. Neither of those teams are monumentally good this season. And then UNLV, who's also pretty good at basketball this year, but one of those mid-major schools you don't really expect. Like if UNLV beat Baylor, I would feel probably not great about that. Yeah. It's a game where Washington State's overmatched. Baylor has shown what it can do against Gonzaga, where I did think the defense was a lot better. I don't even know. I think, and you mentioned that earlier too. This is why I bring you on for basketball. The defense has shown much better strides since that Marquette game. Did you read the story about how EJ, Jonathan Chama stopped the team during practice right before the Gonzaga game, was like, this is not cutting it, guys. Like our defense. Have you read that yet?
I have, yeah. It was wild.
Where he's look, this is not it.
Yeah, and I was ready to, run through a wall. But I think in that also, I mean, as always, we're about to be all over the place here when I'm on the pod, which is, I guess, fine. That is like why I am so happy that EJ stayed and is like continuing his degree, stayed around. Like, I would love to have him on the court, but that presence in practice on the sidelines is like, it can't be matched. Also, speaking of EJ, did you see the video he put on his Instagram?
No, what?
It was like, he put a video, I don't remember the caption, but I distributed it to like all of my like friends that I have season tickets with and go to games with. And he was like running, jumping, shooting. I'm not saying anything. I know nothing, but might be close.
Most basketball players, they run, they jump, and they shoot. So those are 3 things that I would really like out of everyday John. That would work for me. I don't think it's going to happen, but if it does happen, I would be very excited. Brandon, what is your kind of your score outlook here for Baylor Washington State? Again, like I already said it, I don't expect this to be a game, but maybe we get one.
Yeah, I think so. Washington State turns the ball over 14 times a game, and
it's not great, Brandon.
Not great. That's one. I'm not going to do the math. That is one every couple of minutes. Which is about every 2 possessions if you think about it, with like how college basketball is from a shot clock standpoint. 30 seconds. If the defense is as connected as we're thinking they will be and has tightened up as we think they will, I think that we're going to wreak havoc. I think Baylor's going to win 82-65. 17-point win.
I like that.
So if the spread on BetOnline comes out at anything below 17 points and you like to sports bet, I would suggest taking the Bears.
What was the Villanova game? Because I remember it was just fun, like 43 points they scored or something. Like I was shocked they got to 40. Maybe it was 41. Well, what did Baylor have? Like 58.
It was
or
like
something?
in the low 60s, I think.
So we're not.
We won. We won by 20, and we scored like 60 points. I remember I wrote a recap, and I was like, "This is ridiculous."
Yeah. And then Jay Wright post game was just like, "I don't know, guys. I just don't really know."
Yeah.
That was awesome. So that's a pretty good Villanova team too. I don't know, fun memories. Brandon, if people want to go see your basketball stuff, your basketball stuff, where do they go find your basketball stuff?
Yeah, we actually today, or depending on when this runs, today, as in the day that we recorded, but a couple of days ago, I suppose, for when this is coming out. Doesn't matter.
Out Thursday. Today is Thursday.
Yes. So 2 days ago, I interviewed Flo and Dale, which was really great, and to continue that sit-down series that we've been doing with Our Daily Bears. So that's where you can find most of my content, a ton of great basketball content from the Our Daily Bears team at ourdailybears.com. And then I tweet it all out at Brandon_Mac on Twitter. So it's been great. It's been cool that those guys have been giving us time, especially like now when they're doing finals and practice. So it was cool to get to know those guys a little better, and excited to share it with Baylor fans.
Brandon, I love it. Thanks as always for coming on the show. Pleasure to have you again today. And for all those listening, thank you for making Locked On Baylor your first listen every single day. Come back tomorrow. We're going to talk about football, basketball, stuff like that. Coaches, things. I don't know. This has been, always will be, Locked On Baylor.